despised by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
Is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
So this pharmaceutical deal, I'm just going off the Truth Social posts. It says, it's a long one, but he says, I'm pleased to announce that today, the White House at 9 o'clock will be signing one of the most consequential executive orders ever. They will be reducing pharmaceuticals by about 80%. Essentially, we are going to pay less than the country that's paying the least for pharmaceuticals from here on in. How does that work?
First of all, it cannot be overstated how big of a deal this executive order that President Trump will be signing in a couple of hours is for American families, and especially our seniors who have been ripped off by very large and rich pharmaceutical companies. The United States of America is less than 5% of the world's population, yet we purchase 75% of Big Pharma's profits. We pay an astronomical amount in comparison to other countries around the world. So the president is signing an executive order today that is going to implement most favored nations drug pricing and is going to reduce the cost of drugs in this country by more than half at least. America is going to pay a better rate and a fairer rate to the rest of the world. That's what the American people deserve. This is huge news. And also, I will add, we know that healthcare costs and drug prices were the #1 driver of Biden inflation. So not only are we bringing those down, but we are ending Biden inflation once and for all.
All right, everybody, welcome to Monday morning. It's already been a busy week. I mean, we're only a couple hours into Monday, and it's already been a busy week. So much is happening. And one of the things I just wanted to say before he got on camera and they do this thing is to, if you're a praying person, pray for President Trump, with him going overseas and as he begins to drive a stake deep into the heart of the deep state. This is a monumental, historic executive order, and it basically is cutting between everything we've seen what Doge has done and how they eviscerated USAID and systematically one thing after the other. He has worked methodically with a scalpel to just start tearing apart the deep state funding, the Democrat funding, all of their grift, all their corruption, bit by bit by bit, is just being sliced away. And then today, you're about to see a huge slice of this go away. Huge. I don't know how some of these networks are going to be able to survive, because I don't see how these pharmaceutical companies are going to be able to pay for the advertising and the subsidizing that they do for the talent on some of these networks. I don't know how they do it. And so people are going to get kind of squirrely. They're probably going to try and strike back any way they can. So pray for President Trump, because this is monumental. Cutting drug prices down 50, 80% is, I couldn't even imagine that this was going to happen. Couldn't even imagine. Now, luckily we're not at the age, myself and Robin, where we're taking all kinds of drugs and everything, but there are many people who take pharmaceuticals from the time they're young to treat different kind of conditions. And the insurance companies, your insurance rates should drop. Why would the insurance rates drop? Because part of the reason why the insurance rates are so high is they have to insure your pharmaceuticals, both at work and if you're on a private policy. So the ripple effect here is going to be monumental, from the media to politics to the food you eat. All of this stuff is really going to be impacted to the better. Now I'm waiting to see how the Democrats respond. I'm waiting to see how they come out and complain about this and say everybody, this is the worst thing ever. You're going to have to pay less. How do you? The two things now that are going to kill their party, they have to convince you it's not right for you. We should be letting the newcomers in. No. You should be paying higher prices for pharmaceuticals. No. You should be paying more in taxes. So we can't do, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that President Trump is doing is putting them in a position that they have to advocate against you. Now, of course, there's a bunch of liberal nuts out there who are, they'll say anything to keep in power, but people who can discern have to begin looking at things and going, this doesn't make any sense at all. You guys are fighting to hurt us, to continue hurting us. And it doesn't make any sense. And I think people with functioning frontal lobes are going to wake up, or begin to wake up, and say, this guy Trump is actually getting some stuff done. Crazy, isn't it? All it took was a new president. He said it. You didn't have to do all kinds of, in fact, at this point, Congress is feckless. They're doing nothing. They've only passed 5 bills to his desk since he's been in office, the lowest basically in history. So this is all Trump. Everything you're seeing is all Trump. That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I voted for this. You voted for this. But I didn't think it was going to happen with this speed. So today at 9:30, in 6 minutes, they say, they're going to come out. He and Rfkjr Jr. are going to basically announce it. So that should be kind of interesting. Let me see if the stock market is not really reporting yet. It just opened, it opens in like 5 minutes. But yesterday, after everything happened, and I tried to let everybody know, just chill, just breathe deep. This is expected. This is what's going to happen. And SV and the mods and everybody were telling me, oh my God, gold is crashing. It's crashing. You won't believe what's happening with gold. I'm like, it's supposed to happen this way. If people don't tell you, yeah, they're lying to you. All right, so let me just show you something about gold. So yesterday, this is where everybody said, it's crashing, it's falling off a cliff. And I said, just hold on, hold. You heard me say it. And I said, it's going to go like this as people move money and they move it around to take advantage of stock deals, and it's going to come back. And what do you know? If you understand how the markets work, this isn't hard to predict. So, yesterday, Sunday, gold pricing goes 24/7. The announcement comes out, bam, gold drops. And I told people, just hold on a second. You'll be all right. Just chill. And it dropped, and then it dropped more, and now it's coming back up. But in totality, it's down 3%. That's not a crash. over 5 days, it's 3.76%. So it's not really that much of a difference. Then you click here, and there's your 1 month average. Gold is not a speculative investment. It never was. It never will be. It's long term. The steadiness of stability is what you're looking for. So when you, this isn't even part of anything for Lear Capital. This is just me addressing people yesterday who were freaking out. Oh, Barry, you said buy gold. Oh my God, it's crashing. No, it didn't crash. I don't think you've experienced it. If you thought yesterday was a crash, you haven't experienced a crash. And if there was a crash, if there was an economic crash, then you should have more gold. See, that's the opposite of what people seem to think. No, you should have more if things actually are crashing. Because, that's what, it's never going to be worth zero. All right, so we're still waiting for President Trump to come out here. Let me go to a couple of his truth posts. So, before I get to the truth post, after his press conference, depending on how long it goes, I'm planning on covering the deal that Scott Bessent did with China and all the details about that. We've got a whole bunch of information, and it's just 9:27 on a Monday. All of this just 9:27 on a Monday. It's going to be a very, very busy day. And then President Trump is hitting the airplane. He's heading to Saudi Arabia at 10:30. So he'll be done. But as you've seen, things are going to continue to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if he holds a press conference. He's going to have, 12 hours on a plane? So he may end up talking some more while he's there. So these got posted. And let me bring this up here real quick. Drug prices to be cut by 59% plus. So it could be anywhere between 30 and 80% depending on the drug. Plus gasoline, energy, groceries, all other costs down. No inflation. Love DJT. It's happening. And it's hard for us to sometimes take a step back and say, it's only been 100 and something days. It seems like he's been in office for a year or two. So you can expect, like I said yesterday with people who were freaking out, I'm like, this is only May. Hold on, the summer's coming. You can't even imagine what August and September are going to look like. You've seen where we've gone from January 20th to where we are now. So at that same rate, because I remember me being one of the same people saying, I don't know how he can keep up this pace. I'm convinced now he can, and he will. Because the next shoe to drop is we're waiting to hear about habeas, whether or not that's going to be suspended. I've talked to a few law enforcement officers who are telling me something's going on. Something is happening. We're being told we can't take overtime. Not take overtime. We can't take vacation. Something is going on, and we don't know what, but we'll look at that. So he said that. Then the whole thing with the big jet, the big beautiful jet. So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily is a very public and transparent transaction, so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody who can do that, the Dems are world-class losers. My God. President Trump is cutting a deal and to get use of the hotel in the sky, as they call this giant jet that Qatar is willing to gift to the Defense Department. And for some reason, that has got people all freaked out. I mean, just going crazy. Oh, it's a gift. He's on the take. It's corrupt. And it's like, it's to the Defense Department, number one. Number two, when the details come out, it'll be fully transparent. Everyone will be able to look at all the different clauses and leases or whatever it's going to be. You see it. And then you get people. And I wanted to reach through my monitor this morning as I was looking at Twitter, and people are like, I don't trust Qatar. They're going to put bugs and bombs and stuff in there, and then he's going to be in danger. So you think that your president is going to get his butt on a plane that every square inch, nook and cranny hasn't been investigated, inspected, poked and prodded before he ever turns the engine on? Seriously? Again, people, I keep saying, this is the guy you voted for. If he says this is good and I'm getting on it, then why are people on X all freaked out? Because they're not having faith in his decisions. Having faith in some, I think he is doing the right thing with the newcomers. Oh, I don't think he should use the Qatar jet. Oh no, shouldn't do that either. They just put the camera on in the room. So yesterday he said he was going to be signing the executive order at 9 and then doing the press conference at 9:30. But I'm seeing there's a table set up where they normally sign the executive orders. They bring out that little table, and so he hasn't signed yet. He's going to do it all at once. So we're going to see the signing, and then we're going to see both he and Rfkjr speak. Great, very good. But what I was saying, that they're all complaining about the jet. Wake up. Wake up. With our technology and with the guys we have in place, everyone from the pilot to whatever staff are on that jet in terms of CI, everyone's going to pour through this thing. If he does it, you have to just trust he knows what he's doing. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Next thing he posted, he went after, wait a minute, no, not wrong window, hold on. He went after Martha Raddatz from ABC. So funny to watch old-timer Martha Raddatz on ABC Fake News. The Slopodopoulos show this morning blurred out that effectively Pope Leo's selection had nothing to do with Donald Trump. I didn't think it had anything to do with Donald Trump. Did it? Well, it came out of nowhere, but it was on her Trump deranged mind. Remember, I did win the Catholic vote by a lot. Bob Iger should do something about the losers and haters he's got on his low-rated shows. It's time for change, MAGA. So, is he saying that he had something to do with the Pope getting elected? But one thing, he's going after the chairman of Disney, Bob Iger, and saying, you got to clean this up. At this point, it's getting ridiculous. It's ridiculous on all of the media channels. It is a 24/7 lie fest all day long, and it's getting just to the point where they don't have anything else. The politicians like AOC and Bernie, their entire modus operandi right now is to just stand up and lie. And, you know, it's that bad. And then he just confirmed as well, this was at 6:21 a.m., that Eden Alexander, the hostage we spoke about yesterday, who is thought to be dead, has been indeed released and is on his way home. So it's 9:34. And just to sit back and go, okay, what's happened so far at 9:34? Well, he's got a hostage back. He has a jet pledged to him for free, a huge palace in the sky, they're calling it. They're about to announce an executive order and do a speech on rolling drug prices back 30, 80%, depending on the drug. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we got to deal with China. 4 things. And it's Monday at 9:30. Unbelievable. So much news. So what the little housekeeping here I have for you is what we're going to do today is we're going to cover this speech. And then after he's done, we're going to talk about the China deal. And then I'm probably going to come back about noon, 12:30, and do a regular show. And I've got a couple of good guests that we're going to be bringing on. And then, of course, tonight we've got the Rumble show. Well, not the Rumble show, the evening show with the Rumble Jump Over. So all of that is coming up today. You're going to get 3 shows. Somehow we're going to get 3 shows out of this, because I'm not just going to stay the whole time, because I know President Trump's probably going to do, let's say, it's going to take information from the press as well. This may be a 45-minute press conference and executive order signing, and then he's bouncing off to Joint Base Andrews to fly away. All right, let me see if they posted. Okay, so the market is open. Boom. right off the bat. Let's see here. Let me show this to you guys. I was waiting for the opening bell. Opening bell, it's up almost 1,000 points at the open. That's big. That's big. And then you're going to see it again today. You're going to see fluctuation. Things are going to move up and down. Profit taking, people taking losses, margin calls, all kinds of things happening. So but just watch. Let's just see how it goes throughout the day. And you can watch both of those things happen simultaneously. So I'm waiting for President Trump to come out. I've got the different things on. He's not out yet, so we can probably take a few comments. I don't want to miss him coming out, so let me make sure I move this window up in case he comes up, and then I can take comments with... Yeah, we go. Let's see. Trump is on live. No, don't see him live yet. Sorry, guys. Sometimes people say that. He's going to be coming on. Let's see here. Barry is a music connoisseur. I love it. Yeah, I love music. New Pope will try to turn the Catholic people against President Trump. Well, he's starting already by saying the right things. The new Pope is. I mean, he said today a couple of things that kind of shocked people. But we shall see what kind of Pope he'll be. Marcus, crypto is exploding. Interesting. Dow is up over 1,000. Somebody just said at this point. Yep, here we go. Good day, happy Monday. Hello, Toy. How are you? How are you? This here. Oh, we got the typical troll people coming in here. Did he get permission from his bosses to do this? I believe it when Congress passes it. Otherwise, it's a smoke show. Somebody want to tell him? Somebody want to tell him? Oh, man, that's too funny. That's too funny. I trust Trump. I don't even worry anymore. For the guy who was talking about it's a smoke show, let me ask you a question. And you can play along at home. Do you think, by any stretch of your imagination, that lowering consumers' drug prices by up to 60 or 80% is going to meet a lot of resistance? Because if that were to meet any kind of resistance in the House or the Senate, those people might as well start packing the stuff up in their boxes now. They are short-termers, and if anything, what President Trump is doing right now, and you have to understand this is part of the process as well, is throw as much stuff out there, flood the zone, and by doing so, also expose these rats. And when I say rats, both Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, there's some rats on the right too, as well. And just let them show. I want to see the first politician that comes out and says, no, I don't want people to have cheaper drug prices. That would be political suicide in epic proportions. So is it going to pass? If it needs to get passed. But is it going to pass? Well, that depends on how many people want to just fall on a sword and be completely idiots, who want the sadomasochistic pleasure of just trying to, show everybody their TDS. You really think people are going to do that? Wow. Nope, he's not on yet. Nope, I just don't see the resistance happening. I just don't see that. SB is cracking me up. I sent you back to blue sky to cry. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Trump is swarming them. No, I don't have anything frozen. Let me check the other monitor, other feed, just to make sure. 1 second. This will tell me if it's running on anywhere else. But let's see here. Nope, I've got, okay. Just so I can show you. Here's what you got. When you say it's live feed, I use primarily the White House feed, and this is what the Lighthouse. This is what the White House feed merely says coming soon. It's like an attraction. Coming soon. We'll be there in a minute. Just chill. So you know I'm not missing anything. let me just put this up here. I can do it this way, so you guys can all see as well. There it is, right there. Coming shortly. We're on our way. We'll be there. Hold your horses, so you're not missing anything. You can actually see right there. This is the White House feed, and as soon as he comes out, they'll turn that on, and once they turn that on, we'll be able to rock and roll. So there it is. President Trump holds a press conference with the Secretary of Health and Human Services. I'll leave that on. I'll leave it up so you guys can see it, and then we can just I can keep taking comments with that right there. Thus, if I'm looking this way and it comes on, I can hear it. So let's just go with that. Deanna Folk, exactly. Keep President Trump in prayers today for his overseas trip to be safe and protective shield around him. Indeed. I always get nervous when he ends up flying. Let's see. Lower pharmaceutical prices are horrible for consumers. Oh my. Lower drug prices? Oh, that would suck. Wow, said nobody. SV, it says you dropped something big. What did SV drop? Let's see. Did he send me a notice? Okay, so he said the richest 10% fuel most of global warming. The irony. Turns out the richest 10% of the world's population are behind 65% of global warming since 1990. Whew, wow, I didn't even know that. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy when you think about things in that regard. Gold is correcting to reflect a stronger dollar. No worries. Yeah. This is part of, you know what the thing is? We are in such a different realm. This is so new to so many people who've only focused here for so long. And now it's to the point where you got all this information available to you. And it's incumbent upon you to begin doing your research and understand how all of this works. Because just, what was it? I don't know, a week ago, people were freaking out about tariffs, and you had the media telling you all kinds of BS. Oh, the tariffs don't work. The tariffs are awful. What are we going to do? Tariffs are going to pay more. They were lying. They were lying the entire time. But people who had never even researched the word tariff, who had no basis or substantiation of their own, freaked out. Because again, they fell for the media blitz. And the only way this stuff is going to stop is when, for instance, habeas is being talked about. Stephen Miller came out and said, we're considering suspending habeas. So at that point, as that was said, don't turn on the news. Don't click the button and go, what's Fox saying? No, they want you to do that. When you hear something you haven't heard before, which you may hear today, when someone says, hey, we're considering suspending habeas. What the hell is habeas? Most of the people in the media don't even know. They get fed in the ear. Oh, well, yeah. Habeas is when you can detain people without any courts getting in the way. Go look it up. And when I say look it up the way you should and get the information that you can so you can make an informed analysis yourself. Oh, so that's what habeas is. Has it ever been done before? That's another thing. And people, I don't know. Has it ever been done before? Go look it up. What's all this stuff? What's all this stuff about Andrew Jackson? And why is he talking about Jackson? Go look it up. This is a different world, and it requires people to not have to have newscasters telling them what something is. And in fact, what I try to do most is bring a title or a subject to you and then tell you, go look it up. You don't have to listen to me. Go look it up. And we're going to continue to hear different things because Trump is taking that snow globe and he's shaking it like this, and people have not seen this probably in their lifetimes. I know I haven't seen this. And he's looking at all the different recesses of government saying, can we use Alien Enemies Act? How many of you had heard that? And all of a sudden, everyone on television was an AEA expert. Yet none of them were experts. Somebody was telling them what their interpretation of it. Go look it up. This is going to happen. That's amazing. I just mentioned that 3 or 4 things. And just by looking at those 3 or 4 things, those are things nobody has talked about. Literally, no one's talked about suspending habeas. No one's talked about the Aliens Enemies Act. Nobody's talked about these things, probably for decades. And so you got to dust off your Constitution and everything. Oh, okay, I understand what this is. Now, that's what we're going to have to do moving forward. And so we're going to see these 2 guys come out, and I'm sure he's going to blast us. I'm looking at the different posters that they're setting up in the room, and these posters are data, and these posters are all kinds of different pictures. And so I'm interested. They just put up a picture as they're begin getting ready here. They put up a picture of the Golden Dome. Why would you be talking about the Golden Dome today as you're talking about pharmaceuticals? We're going to find out. There's another picture here that they're setting up. And this picture that they're setting up over here looks to be, let's see here. This is a very dangerous world. We're going to protect our citizens like never before. So you're going to hear something about the Golden Dome for America. And this might have something to do, and he's dropping something, this may have something to do with his trip going to Saudi Arabia. Because these 2 things that I'm looking at have nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. So he's going to break some news today. What's the 3rd thing I see here? The 3rd thing is, I can't read, it's too small on the screen. Even if I put glasses on, I wouldn't be able to see that. So, you're going to get more information. I can tell you that right now. You're going to get information that we haven't even heard in the last couple days. Something's going to be coming out about the Golden Dome. And of course, don't listen to the media. Go look it up. President Trump, greatest president ever. Exactly. Sounds like the habeas stuff may be going on. It may indeed. Almost went broke paying share of the $18,000 per dose times 6 doses chemo treatments. This could prevent people from going bankrupt to being sick. Maybe even prevent some people from dying. Imagine that. Literally every commercial on TV is from Big Pharma. It's insane. Yeah, it's actually crazy. And they tailor it that way on the news shows because most of the people investing their time into news are people who are a little bit older, and that's when stuff starts breaking down. And I don't mean anything bad because I got a knee that's breaking down on me, and I was pitched by my ortho, and I think I told you guys this, and he's like, we got this great thing, it's called some sort of plasma replacement stuff that we get from umbilical cords. And I was, huh? And I came back and go, Robin, where are they getting this stuff from the umbilical cords? And she looked it up. And she goes, you can't take that. And I'm like, what is it? Well, they're taking plasma and stem cells from aborted babies and they want to shoot it in your knee. Like, oh, I'll limp. I'm sorry. If it's cloudy outside like it's raining today and I feel like some arthritis flaring up, I'll take a couple bare aspirins. I am not shooting my knee up with plasma from aborted babies. That ain't happening. No, ain't ever gonna happen. And I'm pissed off that the doctor even asked me for that and see if that was something I wanted. And he was so smooth. We can do it right here. It's pretty much painless. It'll take us about 15 or 20 minutes and that's it. You'll be all right. And so if I had said yes, they would have injected me with that crap. So Rfkjr, Dr. Oz, and the other guy, Dr. McCary, have walked in the room. Another doctor, as you can see, here comes the president.
Thank you, everybody. It's a big day. Should be fun. I don't know. You'll maybe find reasons why it's not, but I can't imagine because we have a lot of great things happening. It's been a very strong week and a very strong weekend. Before we begin, let me say a few words about the historic events that took place over the last few days. On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. and they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop. And I'm very proud to let you know that the leadership of India and Pakistan was unwavering, powerful, but unwavering in both cases, and having these, they really were, from the standpoint of having the strength and the wisdom and fortitude to fully know and to understand the gravity of the situation. And we helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop. And they have. And they did it for a lot of reasons, but trade is a big one. We're going to do a lot of trade with Pakistan. We're going to do a lot of trade with India. We're negotiating with India right now. We're going to be soon negotiating with Pakistan. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war. Millions of people could have been killed. So I'm very proud of that. I also want to thank Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio for their work and efforts. They worked very hard on that. We also, as you know, created a situation where the Houthis, for the first time ever, have ceased firing, and they've let it be known that they're not going to be firing at American ships anymore, not going to be firing at Americans anymore. This was a heavy barrage that lasted for approximately 50 days. And as you know, they've been in war essentially for forever. But over the last 10 years, they've been very difficult for other countries. Nobody was able to do what we did. But they stopped, and we take their word for it. Their surrogates and them directly said, we don't want to do this anymore. And so we were satisfied with that. In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs because they don't want to pay 25, 50, or 100% tariffs, so they're moving them back to the United States. I spoke to Tim Cook this morning, and he's going to, I think, even up his numbers, $500 billion. He's going to be building a lot of plants in the United States for Apple, and we look forward to that. I really do look forward to that. But the talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing. But one of the biggest things that we're doing, and I don't know if people realize this, but we made a great deal with China, a great trade deal. But it was a much bigger deal originally, and then they canceled it right in the last day. Some of you faces I remember were there when that happened. I remember you. And we had a deal where they opened up their country to trade with the United States. And they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing. And then 6 months later, we ended up doing a smaller deal. But it was a big deal. It was $50 billion worth of product that they were going to purchase from our farmers, et cetera. And we agreed to that. People thought it was 15 because they were doing 15. We made it 50 because I misunderstood the 15. I said, you got to get 50. Because when I asked, if you remember the story, when I asked, what are we doing with them? My Secretary of Agriculture at the time, Sonny Perdue, said, sir, it's about 15 billion and we're asking for 15. And I thought he said 50. So I said, so they came back with a deal at 15, and I said, no way, I want 50, because you said 50. They said, sir, we didn't say that. Anyway, bottom line, I said, go back and ask for 50, and they gave us 50. And they were honoring the deal, and we would call them up a lot for the corn and for the wheat and for everything. They were honoring the deal, and then when Biden got in, they no longer honored the deal. There was nobody to call. I would call on an average of once every 2 weeks to say, come on, you have to speed it up a little bit. And our farmers were doing great. I said to them, buy more land and bigger tractors, if you remember. That's what happened. But the deal was a very good deal. But the best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in. And it would have been a great thing, I think, for China. They would be able to see things that they haven't seen. They would be able to buy products that they have never been able to buy. Would have been great for American business. I think it would have brought unity between China, better unity between China and the United States. And the bottom line is that they canceled it the last day. We were all set to sign it, and then I went a little bit angry. I got a little angry. I said, they canceled the deal. The deal was done. It was all ready to be signed, and people went over, they came back to me, sir, they don't want to sign the opening up China. Well, the biggest thing that we're discussing is the opening up China, and they've agreed to do that, but it's going to take a while to paper it. You know, that's not the easiest thing to paper. But that's the single, I think, to me, some people would disagree. Some people would say we're getting a lot of money with tariffs or whatever, but, you know, especially when you add what we already have, because remember, we're already getting the 50% on steel and different things. That's not included in these numbers, so you can add that. But the biggest thing to me is the opening up. It would be, I think it would be fantastic for our businesses if we could go in and compete with China. It would be a lot of jobs for China. It would be, I think, at a time when they can frankly use the jobs. And that's what we're talking about. So that's a very, very important element to add. So when Scott, I watched him speak the other day, and I think he didn't want to say it, but I said, it's okay to say it. Look, if we don't get it, we don't get it. But if we don't get it, it won't be a positive thing. But if we do get it, I think it's maybe the most important thing to happen. Because if you think about it, we opened up our country to China. They come, we don't, I mean, they have very few restrictions. And they didn't open their country to us. Never made sense to me. It's not fair. And they've agreed to open China, fully open China. And I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. And I think it's going to be great for unification and peace. China will also suspend and remove all of its non-monetary barriers. They've agreed to do that. Well, they're very numerous. But again, to me, the biggest thing that came out of that meeting is they've agreed. Now we have to get it papered, but they've agreed to open up China. It's going to be great for everybody. And third, I'm very happy to announce that Idan Alexander, an American citizen who until recently most thought was no longer living, thought was dead, is going to be released in about 2 hours, actually. And he's going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who has done a fantastic job. I just, you know, I know a lot of people, they have a lot of talent. I know Steve, he had a lot of talent. But I know a lot of people with a lot of talent, but there's one that I thought had a special way about him, special personality. Aside from being a good deal maker, had a special way about him, and it was Steve. Knew very little about the subject matter, who does? But he learned it in about 2 hours. And he's been fantastic, so I want to just thank Steve. But they're going to be releasing Idan in about 2 hours from now, or sometime today, let's say. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy. They're so happy. So it's, as you know, Idan's the only American citizen who's captured and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead. So that's that. So we'll be heading there, and we'll be seeing 3 primary countries. You know all about that: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. On Thursday's meeting with Russia and Ukraine is very important. I was very insistent that that meeting take place. I think good things can come out of that meeting. Stop the bloodshed of the horrible, it's a bloodbath. But that 5,000 more, it's really much more, I'm trying to be conservative, more than 5,000 soldiers. Russian, they're not American soldiers, they're from Russia, they're from Ukraine, but they're people, they're human souls, and they're being killed at levels that we haven't seen since the Second World War. And it's every week. A lot of drone fighting. It's a whole new form of warfare, and it's violent and vicious. And so that's it. I'd like to go back to China just for a second. They're very heavy on the fentanyl. We're charging them, as you know, 20% for the fact that they send fentanyl into our country. And they've agreed that they're going to stop that. And, you know, they'll be rewarded by not having to pay, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So the fentanyl should stop. It comes from China. It's amazing. And comes through our southern border, comes through our northern border too, comes through Canada, and comes through our southern border, much more through the southern border. But so that's a very important subject to me, because everybody in this room has lost friends or people that have family members that have died of fentanyl. So there's a big incentive for China to stop, and I take them at their word. They're going to work on that, I think, very hard. And one thing, when they work on something, they get it done. So now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Before I do, I'll sign one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything signed like this, certainly not with respect to health care, nothing even close. I'm delighted to be joined on this occasion by Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., who is doing a really good job, I have to tell you that. CMS Administrator, a friend of mine, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is an amazing guy. You know, I was telling Bobby before, Oz had a very successful show, but it hurt his reputation. Because when you're in show business, it hurts your reputation a little bit. It's good for you, but in terms of professionalism and being a doctor, it sort of hurts your reputation. This guy went to the best schools, was the best, I mean, top of the line. Then he did a television show, became a success, made a lot of money, all that stuff, but it sort of hurt him. And you know who I compare that to? I hate to say this, but a special woman, Jeanine Pirro. She was the toughest, smartest DA, maybe in our countries, in our cities and states history, New York. She was really tough, really sharp. Then she did a show, and people didn't think of her quite the same way. She became more of an entertainment person, like Oz. Oz is not an entertainer. He's not really an entertainer, if you know the real story. And she isn't either. She is unbelievable. She was one of the strongest district attorneys in the history of New York, highly respected, very tough, went after the drug dealers at a level that you don't see today anymore. And hopefully she's given up she's leaving the #1 show on cable television, one of the #1 shows on television, period, The Five, but they've got great people left behind, but she was a big part of it. And so I equated to that. Jeanine Pirro is unbelievable. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, with a reputation that's second to none, and the job he's doing already has been fantastic. Thank you, Marty. And Director of National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya, who has been, as you know, from Stanford, so highly regarded, and have all been working with us very hard on this. And the question they would ask, being a little bit new to the government aspect of it, is why doesn't somebody fight the drug price situation, meaning equalization? There's a term, it's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term. And I'm not knocking the drug companies. I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies, because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers. And they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what, for the same drug, that what we pay many, many times more for. And will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal, brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta. They're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric, and they get rewarded $15 billion, $17 billion, $20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you. So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult from what I understand. I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked, and it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart, good person too. And we argued about it for about half hour. And then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. You got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit. It was just one of those things. And the other countries would set a price, and they'd meet the price, and they'd say, if you don't meet the price, you can't sell it in our country. I said, well, then you walk away, and, they'll call you back, and they'll sell it in the country. But now they'll have to do that. So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Pharma has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. It's trade. And Pharma is also very powerful. and the Democrats have protected pharma. The Democrats, this is the Democrats have protected pharma. These are the Democrats. And by the way, I just called the Speaker of the House, and I just called the leader, our leader in the Senate, John Thune, Mike Johnson. Spoke to both of them. I said, when you score, you're going to have to score two things. You're going to have to, number one, score that hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is coming in. But even bigger than that, you're going to have to score that your cost for Medicaid and Medicare and just basically pharmaceuticals and drugs is going down at a level that nobody has ever seen before. It'll pay for the Golden Dome. I see the Golden Dome is there, see? That'll easily pay for the Golden Dome. And we'll have a lot of money left over. We need the Golden Dome, by the way, in this world. Although this world's a lot safer today than it was a week ago, and a lot safer than it was 6 months ago. We had people that had no clue what they were doing. So today, Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year 2000. Think of that. Our country has the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not like they're slightly higher. They're 6, 7, 8 times. There are even cases of 10 times higher. So that you go 10 times more expensive for the same drug, that's big numbers. Even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not a good thing. Now, I think, by the way, pharmaceutical, I have great respect for these companies and for the people that run them. I really do. And I think they did one of the greatest jobs in history for their company, convincing people for many years that this was a fair system. And nobody really understood why, but I figured it out. For years, pharmaceutical and drug companies have said that research and development costs were what they are, and for no reason whatsoever. They had to be borne by America alone. Not anymore, they don't. This means American patients were effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany, in all parts of the European Union. They were the toughest of all. They were nasty. And I see that. I see that with trade, too. European Union is, in many ways, nastier than China. Okay? And we've just started with them. Oh, they'll come down a lot. You watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. They sell us 13 million cars. We sell them none. They sell us their agricultural products. We sell them virtually none. They don't take our products. That gives us all the cards, and very unfair. So they're going to have to pay more for health care, and we're going to have to pay less. That's all it is. And believe it or not, because it's really the world we're talking about, not just the European Union, but because it's the world, the numbers are for the healthcare company not as bad as you would think. They'll make the same. I think the healthcare companies should make pretty much the same money. I really don't believe they should be affected very much, because it's just a redistribution of wealth. It's a redistribution where it could be the same top line, but it's going to be distributed differently. Europe's going to have to pay a little bit more. The rest of the world's going to have to pay a little bit more, and America's going to pay a lot less. Again, because it's a much smaller population than when you think of the whole world. So basically what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize, where we're all going to pay the same. We're going to pay what Europe's going to pay. We're going to all pay. Now, there may be some countries in dire need, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and help them. But it's called most favored nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. We will get whoever is paying the lowest price. That's the price that we're going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than another country. Whoever is paying the lowest price, we will look at that price and we will say that's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations. That's what it is. One breast cancer drug costs Americans over $16,000 per bottle, but the same drug from the same factory, manufactured by the same company, is 1/6 that price in Australia and 1/10 that price in Sweden. 1/10 for the identical product. A common asthma drug costs almost $500 here in America, but costs less than $40 in the United Kingdom. So $40 in the United Kingdom, which is where this gentleman told me he paid a small amount for his shot. But think of that. So $40 versus $500 here. That's not even bad. There are much worse examples. And the weight loss drug, Ozempic, costs 10 times more in the United States than in the rest of the developed world. 10 times more. Why? Why? What did we do? Suckers. But we never had a president that had the courage to do this. And nobody knew the system like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know this system so well. And I don't think it's fair that it benefits Obamacare. Obamacare is a failure. It's not a good health care. It works. I made it work. I had an obligation to make it work, or an obligation to let it die. I chose that we had to make it work. I had to make it as good as possible. And I had a choice. I could have let it fail or make it as good as possible. As good as possible means it was still not very good, but it survived. And we did the right thing. But this makes everything work. And I don't want to have a bad form of health care work because of the fact I was able to cut drug prices by 80 or 90%. So we're going to maybe come up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a health care that's much better than Obamacare and for less money, which if you guys would work on that along with Congress. But I do want to say that Democrats could have done this a long time ago. They have fought like hell for the drug companies, and they knew they were doing the wrong thing. And it's going to be very hard. I was just telling the leader and the speaker that it's going to be very hard for the Democrats to vote against the one big, beautiful deal. The greatest tax cuts in history, greatest everything, but now you have the big drug prices because that's going to be included. It makes that whole situation different from a scoring standpoint. I just told them, I called them up about this. I said, I'm going to do something that's going to be very monumental, and you're going to be scoring. You better tell your people that this is going to score really well. And then add hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs to your list also. But as big as the tariffs are, this is something that really hits quickly. 5 years ago, I signed an executive order to confront this disaster, but only confront it in a minor way. It was a good confrontation, but never to this extent. And it took people a little while to understand a very complicated system. But Joe Biden, without any knowledge of what he was doing, terminated the policy and then pretended to negotiate under a new system. And then you take a look, 5 out of the 10 drugs that he negotiated are now over 200% more expensive in America than the rest of the world, and far more expensive than when he even got involved. Much more expensive than when he got involved. Joe Biden's plan was as you know, because you wrote about it, you don't say it very loudly, but it was a very big failure, as was his whole presidency. First, I'm directing the U.S. trade representatives and Department of Commerce to begin investigations into foreign nations that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept bottom line and very low dollar amounts for their product, unfairly shifting the cost burden onto American patients. And we'll be taking a look at that very strongly. The biggest thing we're going to do is we're going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that, that game is up, sorry. And if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars into the United States anymore. It's a very big subject. And they won't get cute, because I'll defend the drug companies from that standpoint. They were given a price by the European Unions and other countries. This is what you do. This is what we're going to pay. We're not going to pay any more. Let America pay the difference, because there was a big shortfall. Let America pay it. And that's what we did, but we're not doing it anymore. Next, my administration will secure what we're calling most favored nations drug pricing. The principle is simple. Whatever the lowest price paid for a drug in other developed countries, that is the price that Americans will pay. And we're using the term other developed countries because there are some countries that need some additional help, and that's fine. I think that's very good. Some prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 50 to 80 to 90%. Big Pharma will either abide by this principle voluntarily or will use the power of the federal government to ensure that we are paying the same price as other countries. To accelerate these price restrictions and reductions, my administration will also cut out the middlemen. We're going to totally cut out the famous middlemen. Nobody knows who they are, middlemen. I've been hearing the term for 25 years, middlemen. I don't know who they are, but they're rich. That I can tell you. We're going to cut out the middlemen and facilitate the direct sale of drugs at the most favored nation price directly to the American citizen. So we're cutting out, Bobby, the middlemen. It's so important, right? You got to do that. They're worse than the drug companies. They don't even make a product, and they make a fortune. It's very smart business people, that I can tell you. If companies make no significant progress toward most favored nation pricing, which we will insist that they do, so I think I'm wasting time talking about it. We're going to insist upon it. And we'll insist, and we're going to help the drug companies with the other nations, because those other nations do a lot of trading with us. They need our trade, just like China needed us very badly. They need us just as badly. We will do whatever we have to with trade, just like we did some great things with trade with India and Pakistan. It really helped the situation, very heated situation. Could have lost millions of people, more than millions. I mean, many millions of people. And they want to do business with America, but we never used our powers that way. We never knew how. We never had people that knew how to do that. We'll also open up America's market to safe and legal imports of affordable drugs from other countries, putting dramatic downward pressure on prices. And if necessary, we'll investigate the drug companies, and we'll, in particular, investigate the countries that are doing this, and we will add it onto the price that we charge them for doing business in America. In other words, we'll add it onto tariffs if they don't do what is right, which is everybody should equalize, everybody should pay the same price. And special interests may not like this very much, but the American people will. I am doing this for the American people. I'm doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, probably, the drug lobby, drug and pharmaceutical lobby. But it's one of the most important orders, I think, that's ever been signed, certainly with regard to health care or health in the history of our country, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And I'd like to ask Robert F. Kennedy to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. Yeah. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240. They spend 1/5 of what we do. And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen. What President Trump is saying to our European partners is you got to raise the amount that you're paying for those drugs and pay for your share of the innovation. That the United States is no longer subsidizing that. If the Europeans raise the price of their drugs by just 20%, that is $10 trillion that can be spent on innovation, and the health of all people all across the globe is going to increase because we're going to have better products. So I'm just so grateful to be here today. I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans, and when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime, and we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people. Thank you, and Dr. Oz.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. This is the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. And it's only happening because we have a president with the fortitude, the guts to stand up to the withering criticism and lobbying that's going to occur as soon as folks hear about the executive order. So on behalf of the child in Philadelphia who's got an autoimmune disease with a $1,000 a month drug, or the older woman in Los Angeles who's on a blood thinner who can't afford her copay, I want to thank President Trump. God bless you for having the guts to take on this industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk about the details a little bit. And this is primarily about equalization, as President Trump said. It's about fairness. Think of NATO as a metaphor. When President Trump said, you've got to pay a little more so it makes sense for all of us, they came up, and the European countries contributed. The same thing we believe will happen in this situation. Most people who have thought about this process agree that it is patently unfair to tolerate the numbers that Secretary Kennedy and President Trump have reflected to you. On this chart to my left is a list of the 10 drugs that were negotiated in the IRA. Again, this is the bill, the law, that regulates a negotiation process. This is the best price that was able to be obtained by the Biden administration. And if you look at these numbers, they actually reflect how much on top of the most favored nation price was being paid by the United States. So the closest to me, and Bob, you can point to the chart against the closest one, 289%, the one that's closest to you. That means that we are paying in America 4 times more than that drug costs in other countries. Again, 100% is the baseline. It's 289% above that baseline. It goes all the way down to when we're paying 50% more than any other country. That's the range. As was pointed out by President Trump, half the time we're paying 3 times more than is paid in other countries. It doesn't make any sense for the system. That stated, President Trump has over and over again indicated, and Secretary Kennedy reflected as well, we want innovation. We want our technology partners doing the best they can to make the best solutions for drugs to cure as many people in America and around the world as possible. By getting our allies to pay a bit more, as they should be, and they should have for many years been doing, will course correct a problem that's gotten out of hand. And by doing that in a thoughtful, effective way, we're going to be able to get the pharmaceutical industry whole. Those jobs will still be here, will still be productive, will still be curing cancer and a slew of other ailments that plague humanity. America will still be the leader in this space, but we'll be paying the appropriate amount, the right-sized amount for those tasks. So over the next 30 days, the four of us up here, together with people standing in the back of this room who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, are going to be approaching pharmaceutical companies to talk specifically about what we want the most favored nation price to be based on the best data we have. We're looking forward to a thoughtful interaction with these corporate leaders, many of whom we've spoken to and in quiet will agree the system is not right the way it is. They're patriotic Americans. They want what's right. But the fact that in my lifetime, as Secretary Kennedy said, for the first time, we have a thoughtful and aggressive approach, thanks to President Trump, on taking on the special interests, should give all Americans confidence that this is an administration that stands for fairness and should chill the waters for those who believe they can push us away from our North Star, which is to take care of the American people. Mr. President, God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jay, you want to go next?
Sure. Yep. So I teach economics at Stanford as well as health policy. And one thing that's really, really simple in economics is that when you have a persistent price difference for the same product between two countries, there is something deeply wrong. And what President Trump has done is a historic measure that should have been done a long time ago. What we're going to do is make sure that those prices become much closer to equal, like a competitive market you'd expect. Right now what's happening is the American people are subsidizing in large fraction the research and development efforts for drug companies around the world by the higher prices that we pay. With this new order, Europe will share the burden of that. And in fact, if you may think of it as like as somehow it's like it's going after drug companies, actually it's helping drug companies. Because what we're also going to do with this order, what President Trump has done with this order, is he's said to European governments, look, if you are taking advantage of the drug companies by forcing them to charge very, very low prices, we're going to defend American drug companies in Europe. At the same time, we're standing up for the American consumer who's been paying far too high prices for far too long. I can go back decades to point to congressional reports after government report after government report of tremendously high drug prices, much higher than the rest of the world, and nothing has been done about it until this moment. And I'm really, really proud, President Trump, that you've done this. I'm really proud to be included in this and looking forward to the work ahead.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the many doctors I've talked to about this very issue, thank you for taking the bull by the horns. Presidents on both sides of the aisle have talked about this and floated it and said they've wanted to do it, so you've had the courage to do it. Thank you. I've been a surgical oncologist at Johns Hopkins for 22 years, and I have seen patients suffer. We didn't take an oath to heal patients and then watch their life get ruined financially with their home, mortgage, retirement, going down the drain with GoFundMe campaigns, raising money from church communities and synagogues and friends they haven't seen in 20 years to try to raise money for what? For a system where Americans have been getting ripped off by 10, 12, 15 times higher prices than we see in other countries. The fundamental problem in healthcare is that we've had non-competitive markets. We can do little things around the edges, or we can transform those markets to competitive markets, and that's what this executive order does today. Imagine buying a Ford for $175,000, a regular car, and then hearing that people in London are buying it for $10,000 every day, all day long. That is the craziness of this system. We're going to do everything we can at the FDA to support this executive order. It's transformative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, everybody. I think it's a very important day. In many ways, you have... we'll start with the Houthis. We go to Pakistan and India. We go to what we did with China, the trade deal, and with UK. And by the way, many other deals are coming in very much. At a certain point, we'll just set the price because we know where we are. But we'll just set the price. But world trade is going to be terrific, and our country is going to be making a lot of money. Taxes are going to go down. Taxes are going to go down very, very substantially. But you look at all of the things that we've done, and now today I'm heading over. We'll see what we're going to do with respect to Iran. I think you have very good things happening there, too, by the way. I think can't have a nuclear weapon, but I think that they are talking intelligently. We're in the midst of talking to them, and they're right now acting very intelligent. We want Iran to be wealthy and wonderful and happy and great, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. So I think they understand that I mean business, and I think they're being very reasonable thus far. And don't underestimate Thursday in Turkey. President Erdogan is going to be a great host, and we are doing some work with him having to do with Syria, too, by the way. We're going to have to make a decision on the sanctions, which we may very well relieve. We may take them off of Syria because we want to give them a fresh start. But President Erdogan's asked me about that. Many people have asked me about that because the way we have them sanctioned, it doesn't really give them much of a start. So we want to see if we can help them out. So we'll make that determination. But I think you're going to have maybe a good meeting. You have the potential for a good meeting, that a meeting wasn't going to take place. I insisted that that meeting take place. And it is taking place. And I think you may have a good result out of the Thursday meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And I believe the two leaders were going to be there. I was thinking about flying over. I don't know where I'm going to be on Thursday. I've got so many meetings. But I was thinking about actually flying over there. There's a possibility of it, I guess, if I think things can happen. But we got to get it done. We got to save 5,000 lives a week. 5,000 lives is really more than that. It's worse than that. And when you see and you don't want to see it, but when you see the satellite photographs of the battlefield with arms and legs and heads all over the place, separated by 30 yards from bodies, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So we're working very hard to see if we can end that bloodbath. Okay, there shouldn't be too many questions. It's been covered pretty well.
Mr. President, thank you for taking questions. Two quick ones for you. Starting on trade. If a longer-term deal is not reached with China at the end of these 90 days, can the American people expect those tariffs to go back up to 145%?
No, but they would go up substantially higher.
And then
at 145, you're really decoupling because nobody's going to buy. But they can go, they got very high because of additional tariffs I applied during the course because of fentanyl and other things. But no, but they go substantially higher. Yeah.
And then on Qatar, Mr. President.
I think you will have a deal, however.
You're confident that there will be a deal. On Qatar, for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet, and how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane. It's like from a different planet. And it's close to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous. And it ended up being a total mess, a real mess. And when I came back, I said, by the way, what's going on with the Boeings that are coming in? Well, sir, they're way behind. And they are. They're way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden. And it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. You know, they get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture. And it's something that was done by Ronald Reagan. They actually decommissioned the plane, and he put it in his library. And it actually has made the library, I think, a Boeing 707. It's actually made the library more successful. So it was good.
Do you plan to use the plane after you leave office?
No, I don't. No, it would go directly to the library after I leave office. I wouldn't be using it. No.
Mr. President, on the hostage, you said that the release of the American hostage, Eden Alexander, is a step in good faith to end this war. Do you expect any progress, or perhaps announcement on ceasefire during your trip to the Middle East?
We hope that we're going to have other hostages released too, as you know. So when I met with the hostages 3 weeks ago that were there for quite a while, you remember the 10 people that came in, mostly young people, 1 or 2 were a little bit older. They were explaining the trials and tribulations. I mean, they went through hell. And I said, how many are there? They said 59. I said, that's a lot. I didn't realize, because we got a lot out. You know, we got a lot of hostages out, I think you will acknowledge. They said 59, but then they said, they followed that up by saying 59, of which 24 are living, the rest are dead. But the people whose son, mostly son, I think 1 daughter in this case, but mostly sons are there, or husbands are there, those people want the dead bodies as much as they want the live body. I have a mother that calls me, but came up to me when I first met her, and she said, sir, please get my son out. He's dead, but they have his body. And I asked her about that, and it's as though he were alive. The level of wanting that body back is the same. It couldn't be any more, as though he were alive. So, you know, getting the bodies back is very important. That could be a thing having to do with the religion. It could be same. I was amazed at the level of importance. It's the same as if the son or husband or whatever was alive. So they said 59. In fact, they came in with a number 59 written out on like a sign on their chest. But they came to thank me for getting them out. And I said, what does the 59 mean? They said, well, that means there are 59 people. But then they said, but 24 are living. Now it's 21. The number's 21. So now it's actually, we'll get Etan today. We think we're getting him today. So it's 20. So they have 20 live hostages there. The rest are dead bodies.
Mr. President, are you open to negotiating your tariffs on cars, steel, and aluminum with China or any other country?
Well, we're not even talking about that. We're bringing the car business back into this country. We have commitments, and not only commitments, they've already started construction on many plants. They've left Mexico in a few cases. In a few cases, they've left Canada. They're not going to build in Canada. They're going to build here because we have the market, and the tariffs have been amazing. The election and the tariffs. November 5th was a big day, and on top of that, of course, you wouldn't have the tariffs without the election, I guess, if you look at it. But we have at least 11 committed massive car factories that are going to be built, that are in the process of being built. And some are going through, some have actually started. We also have renovations of existing factories where they weren't utilizing the full factory from years gone by. and now they're under full renovation. They'll be opening up full factories in a very short period of time. Our car industries, I think we're going to have the #1 industry. You know, if you look at Japan and these others, they do tremendously with cars, and they can do that too. But you know, if they want to sell cars in the United States, they're going to have to build factories in the United States, because I'm interested in cars for the United States. And one other thing is, in our tax bill, we're giving not only no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, but also we're going to get a deduction for people that borrow money to buy a car if it's made in America. If it's not, we have no interest.
On the meeting between President Putin as well as President Zelensky, if President Putin doesn't show up to these talks in person in Turkey, will you join Europe in putting higher sanctions on?
If I felt it would be important toward getting the deal done, I'm the one that insisted on the meeting. They couldn't get a meeting because one said ceasefire, one said no ceasefire. It was going back and forth. I said, look, at this point, we got to stop it. Just go to the meeting. The meeting's been set. Go to the meeting on Thursday. And if I thought it would be helpful, I don't know where I'm going to be at that particular point. I'll be someplace in the Middle East, but I would fly there if I thought it would be helpful. Yeah, please.
Refugees. I want to ask you about South African refugees. Dozens of Afrikaners who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, you know, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that violence and come here. Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you. Are you letting China off the hook for these 90 days, and do you really believe that they will follow through with non-tariff barriers and remove those?
Non-monetary tariffs, yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to follow through. I think they want it very badly. I think they want the deal very badly. Again, this doesn't include the steel tariffs that I put on a long time ago that Biden tried to get off, but he couldn't get them off because it was too much money. You know, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China, what a lot of people don't know, but we put on the tariffs originally. And if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have a steel industry today. Now we have a thriving steel industry. It'll be thriving much more with what we're doing because this is the next level. But it doesn't include that, doesn't include cars, doesn't include pharmaceuticals when we do that. And the reason we're doing that will be to get them to come back in the country. You know, there are, again, I always say it because a lot of people forget, but if a company like Eli Lilly, which is making a massive investment in the United States right now. They're building many, many plants. They've already started like 7 of them, many plants, but they are not going to be tariffed. There's no tariff cost. So they're all doing that. They're all coming back to the United States. I mean, I'll tell you what, I hope I get the benefit of watching this because, as president, because, you know, it takes a little while to do this stuff. And we're doing it early in the administration. If you think of it, we have, I believe, if you look at the real total, it's over $10 trillion committed for plants and factories. Other administrations haven't had $1 trillion over a 4-year period, even over an 8-year period. We have over $10 trillion committed in one form or the other over 2 months. Give me a break. I'm here to hear 3, but let's give me a break on the first month. We want to get acclimated But if you think about it, it's really 2 months. And so in 2 months, we have an investment already of over $10 trillion. And other presidents haven't had that done over a year, over 4 years in some cases. It's unprecedented. There's never been anything like it. It's a very exciting time in America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Who's in charge of the budget bill while you're gone, sir?
I'll sign that, yeah.
Mr. President, are you ready to impose sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't agree with the 30-day
I have a feeling
ceasefire?
they're going to agree. I do. I have a feeling.
And who's in charge of the budget bill?
Let's see what happens.
No European countries
Who's in charge of the budget bill negotiations?
in the negotiations.
The budget bill negotiations are taking place. Who in your administration is in charge of that while you're gone? Is it
Everybody,
Vance,
Bobby, from the standpoint of medical, this group behind me, I mean, I think it's the best group ever assembled in terms of medical. I think you're going to see a tremendous cut. I don't think. I mean, I know you're going to see it in Medicaid and Medicare. That cut will be massive because drugs are 50-60% of the cost. So Medicaid costs are going down and Medicare costs are going down because of what we're doing today. And there's no, it's not like, oh, gee, well, maybe it won't happen. It's going to happen because the other countries have no choice. Now, the drug companies are going to have to say, listen, if you don't pay more, we're not going to give you the drug, and they're willing to do that. So that's it. They have to, we have to equalize.
Mr. President, what is the price controls?
Say it?
How do you respond to the fact that this...
It's not price control, no. What was, price control is before. If you want to talk about, price control is what they were doing. They were making us pay. They set a price, and they said, here's what we're going to pay. And anything else, charge America. Because at that time, they had a very stupid president, and it really went crazy during the last 4 years. And remember this, the Democrats are the ones that allowed this to happen. They were the ones that were the protector of this pricing system. And I think it's going to be very hard. You'll have to ask Democrats, are they going to vote against the one great, big, beautiful deal that's being negotiated now, tax cuts, etc. We're now on top of the tax cuts and regulation cuts, all the things. Now you're going to say that the price of your medicine is going down by 60, 70, 80%. You're going to vote against it? I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to do something that their leaders are going to beg them not to do, and that's vote for the bill. I don't see how they can vote against it. How can they vote against it when drug prices, drugs and pharmaceuticals are going to be down 70, 80%? It's going to be very interesting.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why
It's
not?
only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto, when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir, as a businessman, some people may look at this and say, have you ever been given a gift worth millions of dollars and then not received anything?
It's not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense. And you should know better, because you've been embarrassed enough, and so has your network. Your network is a disaster. ABC is a disaster. Here is the bill, Bobby, come on over here. Now you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, a quick question about Turkey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you never know when he's going to double back and do something like that. Oh my gosh. How can ABC continue to take the beat down at every single bam? You're fake news. You're stupid. And the American people can see it. You're stupid. Those who actually would have to watch on a stream, because I doubt that the networks were carrying this stuff, but I don't don't even know how many questions they didn't have about the topic on hand. Making drugs cheaper for Americans. That's what this was all about. And you're talking about everything. They're worried about the jet. I mean, seriously, it's a flippin' jet. It doesn't cost the American taxpayers a dime. Why would that even be a subject that people would be talking about? Why would you even ask a single question about this inanimate object that they're given to the Defense Department? Always looking for that next angle. Hey, we got him this time. Wow. Instead of like talking about what's good for America, President Trump made some interesting points here as he was talking. And one of those points, George Bahezi tweets actually spelled it out perfectly. I want to show this to you. Remember this. Rfkjr Jr. just exposed why everyone in D.C. is panicking about President Trump's executive order lowering drug prices. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman and every senator on Capitol Hill and every member of the Supreme Court. The industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. And what he didn't include there, he said Congress, he said the Senate, he said the Supreme Court, but he didn't include the media. Big Pharma has been paying all these people, left and right, over and over and over. It just doesn't end. We have been bought and paid for decades. And finally, Trump's doing what he said. I'm going to obliterate the deep state, which also includes people on the right. That yes, don't make any mistake. There are people on the right who are part of the deep state. They've been taking this money. Big money. The other thing he mentioned, or I think it was Rfkjr Jr. who mentioned it, is talking about Bernie. Basically threw Bernie into the wood chipper, and you're going to start seeing some Bernie bros go, yeah, okay, he got it done. Let's go ahead and get behind Trump. Which could be also catastrophic to the Democrats, because I think they're starting to see that, which is why they're freaking out even more and more and more. He called out Ozempic by name. I think that was the only drug that he specifically mentioned the brand name. He mentioned a couple of people this and a couple of people that, and they're paying this much more in Canada or England, but he called out Ozempic specifically. Don't be surprised if you see a lawsuit by Ozempic, because the president speaks. It has an international voice, and he just said they're ripping people off. He didn't get into all the health ramifications, but he said they're ripping people off. So if you own any stock in that company, from what was the name of the company? Danish company, you might want to dump that. You might want to clear out from some pharmaceutical stocks at this point, because things are going to get quite squirrely for them. You can count on it. So let me cover a couple other things. And what I'll do is, we've already been almost 2 hours. We'll go ahead and we'll shut this stream down, and then it'll come back on. I think it looks like we're going to come back on at 12:30, and I'll cover all the stuff that's been going on with the China deal that Scott Bessent went ahead and negotiated, because I didn't know President Trump was going to take all this time. Couple quick things and notes. I put this out earlier. Breaking: Elon Musk Tesla is back to a $1 trillion market cap. They went after Elon with all they had. It was their job to go ahead and destroy him. And I want to show you something, because you can go back into the archives of my show, and one of the stocks I told you very simply, this is something that you may want to look at. And people thought I was crazy. And that was Tesla. Let me just show you something. When you look at fundamentals, let me go to a different window. When you look at fundamentals and you understand what you're looking at, you realize where the deals are. All right, so as of today, Tesla is up 6% today. So when all the crap happened, one of the things that you should have known when you're looking at something, nothing happened fundamentally with the company. The cars were still the cars. Everything was still the same. There was nothing that was impacting the ability of that company to make any money. There was nothing. The only thing that was happening was social insanity, where they were going crazy about Elon Musk and Xing off cars and painting them and wiping poop on them and everything else. And that caused a problem. But the fundamentals, if you know how to look at fundamentals when you're looking at stock, you're going to see something. All right, so what I wanted you to do is, this is the just today. And then you look at the 5-day. And there's your 5-day, and it's made 16%. Then you back it out a month, it's 25% up today. But when you look at it, this was the down point. This is when all the crap was beginning to happen. If you look at the 6-month view, see how it's down 3.37 since the last 6 months, but it's back up? Look at the chart. This is when all the stuff, the attacks started happening against Elon Musk. And now you see it's starting to come back up. So, what I want you to look at, there's something here called the 52-week high. And the 52-week high was $488 per share. Now you're listening to this, $488 per share. At one point, you could have bought Tesla at 50% off. When it dipped and it went way down, let's see, when did it go way down? Hold on, year to date, right here. You could have bought Tesla in March. When I started talking about it, you could have bought Tesla at $222. A 50 or almost a 60% discount on that stock. A 60% discount on a company who has done nothing fundamentally wrong and has just chugged along, and the only pressure on this stock, the only pressure was social. People were bitching, screaming, and doing all the stuff, the crazy cars. So if there was nothing wrong with the product, you would have known, well, hey, nothing really happened. It's just people doing social unrest. There's no reason for this thing to have taken a plummet other than him aligning himself with President Trump. Boom. And it went down to 222. And now when you look at it now, it is back up to 317. And at the same time, you know the 52-week high is 488, so you know it's got some legs. That's one of the ways you can begin looking at different things and watching what other people are doing. So today, you know, it's one day. Today, its trajectory, it's up 6.75 just today. It's up 16% in the last 5 days, and it's up 26% in the last 30 days. 26%. Just saying. Just saying. I mean, that's... Barry, why are you showing this? I'm showing this is because it's important for you to do your research. And research means digging deep and understanding what these market trends are and what's happening, because as President Trump himself, not me, on Friday, President Trump said, I'd advise you to buy. I advise you to get in. He didn't say maybe. He didn't say, you know what, it might be a good time. No, I'm thinking something may happen. No, he said buy. Definitively. Get in. This thing's going to take off like a rocket ship. And the reason why, the big reason why I'm showing you this is, as you heard in the questions, the press doesn't want people to know what's happening. With all this stuff happening with China, with the prescriptions, they're talking about a jet that has nothing to do with the quality of your life. I hope you noticed that. They talked about a jet. And you're thinking, oh, that doesn't make my grocery prices any. No, it doesn't make my gas prices. No, none of what they want to talk about is for you. And so, because you know you're not going to get the right scoop from the press, you're going to have to look yourself. You're I was going to show you guys, this is funny. Let's see if I can put it up here. Some of you guys are going to get pissed off at this. I know you will. I know some of you will get mad. But this is Dave Portnoy just a little while ago. Listen to this.
Bitcoin 104,000. XRP is at 263. Get out of here! Get out of here! It was 240 at like. It was at 240 at like 6 in the morning. It's at 263. Get out of here! I told you. ETH 250. I can't. What's my portfolio? Yo! Keep going. Now let's go to the stocks. Of course, this is all stemming on Trump saying he got a tariff deal with China. Restoration Hardware up almost 16%. Wayfair up 16%. Now, people love, you know what they love doing? They love clipping me. They have those clips when the stock market was in the tank and I was crying. It's like, oh, I lost, I think, $6-7 million. And they clip that. And people who don't like Trump and don't like me or whatever, they clipped it. See, even Dave has turned. They didn't play the whole clip. They didn't play the whole clip of what I said, which is I said, I trust Trump. I'm going to give Trump time. I don't think he's going to tank the stock market. I think there's blood in the streets, and I'm going to buy, baby. You know how he's like, drill. I'm like, buy, baby.
Oops, sorry.
And boy, did I buy Wayfair.
What did he say? What did he say? Did he say you buy when blood is in the streets? Who else has said it's time to buy is when blood is in the streets? I'm pretty sure you heard me say that quite a few times. The time to buy is when blood is in the streets. And right now it's Democrat blood. They're freaking out and he's kicking butt. And I salute him because he told people, you didn't play the whole clip. When people said, oh, he was turning on Trump. He had lost some money. He's like, but I'll go ahead and give him the benefit of a doubt.
And boy, did I buy Restoration Hardware. And boy, am I sitting on 7 figures of profit and levered to the hilt with a year to go on options. I told everyone on DDTG to do it. Lots and lots of money. So I said, yeah, I that's what people, yes, I cried. Yes, I was crying. We do a stock show. That's what I do. I react to the news. But if you listen to this show and you followed what I do, you're swimming in piles of green. Because what do we say here? All together, stocks always go up. And I knew these tariff deals would start rolling in. The European people, China, and now it's gold. If you were one of the panicking party, which people are saying I wasn't a panicking party, I actually said I love the name the panicking party, but I was not part of the panicking party. I said maybe I'd start being part of the panicking party come midterms if we have no fucking deals and the stock market is going to zero. Then I said I'm panicking party, but I said I didn't think that would happen. They kept cutting off. I said, in fact, I'm going to buy. Woo!
When I post this stuff about people being happy and enjoying life, and no, I don't expect you to have millions like Dave Portnoy. He built a huge business, sold it, and bought it back for $1, and he's swimming in all kinds of money. But you got to start someplace. You have to start someplace. No matter where you are on that ladder, you can't get to the next rung if you don't take a step. You will always be at the bottom of the ladder going, I wish I could get up there, when all you have to do is take that next step. So it's all on your shoulders. There is nothing holding you back. Nothing. And so right now, and I told you this morning or yesterday, I'm like, there are going to be people making millions of dollars in the next 24 to 36 hours. Millions. And now somebody like Dave is like, yeah, I'm up $700,000 in one day. Could you imagine you saying to your family, I'm up $1,000 today. I'm up $800 a day. When's the last time you made $500 in 24 hours? Now imagine you doing things, and like President Trump told you on Friday, go buy, things are going to shoot up. In fact, I believe he said it's going to be a rocket. And if you had taken the initiative to do some due diligence and say, what can I do? How can I get from this bottom rung to the next rung? Not all the way up, you're not going to get there overnight, but if you took a baby step and said, I'm just going to get to the next rung. where would you be today? How would you feel if you made $100 today? Forget 700,000. How would your life change if this week you could make an extra $500? Just $500. How would your life change? That's what the press doesn't want to talk about. They're out here talking about the Qatar jet. I don't give a shit about the Qatar jet. I don't care if we get it or don't get it. You know why? It doesn't impact my life this much. This much. Not at all. Not at all. But you know what does impact our life? When prescription prices go down, when gas prices go down, and when food prices go down, when China and United States cut a deal, that impacts your life, but they don't want to talk about it. So I understand that prosperity and wealth pisses some people off. Well, I guess I'm the wrong channel, because I'm going to push prosperity and wealth on you until you get sick of hearing it, because that's what President Trump is all about. If you don't know his history and you know anything about him, you'd have to know that part. You voted for this. This is what you wanted. Don't take a little bit. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You got to go all the way in the deep end of this pool and get ready. I've got Mike Howell getting ready to set up, so I think we've done enough talking about finances today. Well, we may talk to Mike about it as well. I will be back in, I think this is like 2 minutes. We're in a very volatile time right now. There's plenty of financial uncertainty. Now is not the time to be speculative. And I'm also speaking from a personal perspective. I'm buying income-producing real estate, and I'm buying gold and silver. A lot of people don't know the difference between the economy and the stock market. And too many people listen to the news and social media. That'll get you in trouble. Let's face it. It's obvious that a lot of people have an agenda they're not telling you about. Right now, your best bet is stability. And that means you might need to build a hedge against global volatility. May I recommend gold and silver to you? Real gold and real silver. Not paper, not certificates. Actual gold and silver. What gold and silver can give you is absolute peace of mind. A stock is only as good as the company behind it. It's merely a piece of paper. One of the things I can tell you is that many people are finding out the hard way that some of their investments were built on quicksand. Gold will never be worth zero. Silver will never be worth zero. If you want to calm some of your fears, give my friends at Lear Capital a call today at 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com. Just so you know, Lear Capital has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and over $5 billion in trusted transactions. And Lear is the only gold company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So go to learberry.com. If you want peace of mind, give my friends at Lear Capital a call at 800-601-5430. Or look down here below and go to learberry.com. And don't forget to ask about getting up to $15,000 in free gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Don't wait. Do it now. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Be safe. I just want to say thank you to the Fanfare community. And if you're new here, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you. If you watch my videos, you've probably realized at this point that this isn't your usual podcast. The difference is that every single day, I try to make this show an open conversation amongst friends. You see, I believe that speaking to friends, here and in your own circle offline, is the best way to push back against all the lies being told by the Democrats and the media. I encourage people in this community to welcome each other, and in doing so, become a source of support for those seeking to unplug from the matrix. If you'd like to communicate on a deeper level, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, but if you'd really like to surround yourself with like-minded patriots, join our free and private X group by going to fanfareshop.org/group. When you join this free group, a few things will happen. One, if you haven't used X before, you can use X without venturing into the sewer that it sometimes can be. Two, you can share content with friends that you meet here. 3, you will get notified every time I go live, so you can't count on YouTube notifications. And 4, and this might be most important, you get content that I can't share on YouTube or Rumble. So please take a moment and join our free and private X group. Just go to fanfareshop.org/group. Remember, it's members only. There are 16,000 plus people in that group right now, getting close to 17,000. To join our free and private members only X group, just go to fanfareshop.org/group. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, everybody. So, changing gears real quick here. I've got a guest coming on, Mike Howell. I'm going to give you his background. But here's what happened yesterday. Something really weird. You guys know there's been a lot of people out there talking about what is Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, what are they all doing? So, one of those guys who's been hitting hard, and I mean hitting really hard, has been Kyle Seraphin. Guy was an FBI agent along with Steve Friend. Got put on suspension and all these things, and so he's got some inner knowledge, and he posted this yesterday, which is kind of scary that this is happening in 2025. Kyle Seraphin says the Stasi was the secret police of East Germany from 1950 to 1990. It was responsible for domestic surveillance, intel gathering, suppressing dissent. Stasi was a major factor in maintaining socialist control over East Germany. And he said the FBI is now the Stasi. And then he shows you what he received last night. This is extremely interesting and extremely scary at the same time. It says, hello, Google received, and this went to his Gmail, I guess. Google has received and responded to a legal process issued by the FBI. This happened yesterday. So this isn't Biden's FBI. I responded to a legal process issued by the Federal Bureau of Investigation compelling the release of information related to your Google account. So that means his YouTube, that means his email, anything. A court order previously prohibited Google from notifying you of the legal process. We are now permitted to disclose the receipt of the legal process to you. The agency reference number on the case number is blah, 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 blah. For more information on how Google handles this and so on. So he was served notice from Google that the FBI wants his stuff. And I said, whoa, is this for real? Because I'm like, no, did you just post that? Because he posts a lot of satire and things like that. I'm like, is this for real? And he responded by posting that last night at 10:23 p.m. local. And here's the user notice. And there it is. He was served. They want access to a private citizen, an FBI agent on suspension. The FBI has, under the ruling of Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and Dan Bongino, have sought now to dig into Kyle Seraphin, probably because of what he's been saying online, on X, on his videos. Why would our FBI be digging in and investigating Kyle Seraphin? And so our next guest, Mike Howell, says, I know what we should talk about on the show tomorrow right now. So yes, we're going to talk about it. If you want to follow Mike, he's with the Oversight Project. Here it is. M. Howell at M. Howell 12. Mike Howell at M. Howell Tweets. He's from the Oversight Project, It's Your Gov, Daily Signal, Lincoln Fellow, top deportation scientist. I got to ask him what the heck that means. An official pardon, auto pen inspector. That says a lot, a whole lot. Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Great to be with you.
Hey, man, how you doing? Before we get to Kyle, all right, tell us what the top deportation scientist and official auto pen inspector is. What's that all about?
Well, they're two very different things, but, you know, we like to do a lot of the Oversight Project. So the deportation sciences is the field that I would say I've pioneered. I've long been making the case that just ICE enforcement alone is insufficient. We need to expand the ways that we get people out of this country. And I call that field of study the deportation sciences. And as we know, you must trust the sciences, and one may never question the scientist. So I've established myself as the ultimate authority there, and I'm glad to see that the Trump administration has accepted the deportation sciences and is looking at a lot of ways to get people out. So that's the deportation science.
Okay. And what about the auto pen?
So we led the auto pen investigation. We were the ones who discovered that the Biden administration was run by a machine auto pen. And we put that out there. We've been pushing a bunch of disclosures that relate to it. And so, yes, we now declare ourselves to be the official national auto pen inspectors because no one's inspected more. We'll hold our record against anybody else. We've put in the hours. We've put it all out there. And that's what we're behind this whole story.
I did not know that. So before we get to Kyle, let's dig into that a little bit. So you guys were the one who brought this to bear and showed everybody all this information about the auto pen. First question in regards to that. How many other presidents have used the auto pen and in what frequency?
Yeah, it doesn't compare at all to the Biden administration. What's categorically different is the scale of the usage of the auto pen almost exclusively in particular the second half of the administration for documents that only Biden could sign. And then also raising the question that is unique to this presidency where we had an incompetent, incapacitated president. We're arguing that we don't think, one, he was able to delegate that authority cognitively, and two, legally not able to either. And this particularly relates to the mad dash at the end and the pardon. Other presidents made use of the auto pen traditionally for like Girl Scout thank you cards and things that are of ceremonial nature. No one's ever used it as the device to basically express the will and intent of the president who was otherwise incapable of doing so.
Now, how'd you guys find it? Because, I mean, obviously it went through all this period of time, and I guess that's something nobody looked at. How did you guys get onto this and think, hey, listen, we need to dig in?
Yeah, so a lot of people, this isn't unique to us. We're raising issues as to how the White House was actually running. Some people actually said, hey, maybe they're using an auto pen and things like that. We took it to the next level by going and pulling the documents themselves and digitally comparing them with forensic analysis and the like. And then we also came on top of that with legal and other investigative research to make sense of it and present it in the theory and with the facts that President Trump ultimately accepted when he declared the pardons null and void. And so what we're doing now is advocating for the prosecution of the people who are left without the protection of those pardons now. That's the stage that we're at. Are the January 6th committee members going to get charged? And I told Adam Schiff, he scampered out of the congressional hearing room because he knew I was going to say this, but I told his colleagues in the Senate hearing that his pardon was funky. They weren't too happy with me. If looks could kill, Durbin would have tried killing me with his dead set glare, but they're on notice.
So has anyone, first and foremost, as you go through the investigation and everything, has anyone denied that these pardons were signed by AutoPen, or is it pretty much now accepted that they were indeed signed by AutoPen?
Yeah, it's the latter. They instantly jumped to defending the usage of the AutoPen, saying the glorious AutoPen's wisdom can never be questioned. And even staffers for the Biden White House admitted to the New York Post that the White House is being run via the authority of the noble auto pen, and staffers had no idea if Biden actually authorized it or if the staffers with the machine were just acting as the president.
All right. So as this story has gotten out, President Trump has been extremely busy doing all this other stuff. Where in the process are we looking at in terms of looking at whether or not the legality of these pardons and everything else that went along with the auto pen can be questioned or overturned?
Yeah, so they have to charge somebody. The Department of Justice, they believe that these people committed crimes, they charge them. And the FBI should investigate in order to form the basis of that. Obviously, we know, roughly what a lot of those crimes would be, particularly as it relates to the J6 committee and their abuse of civil rights of people and their weaponization there. And so what happens next is they get charged, and when they get charged, they'll run into court and say, oh, but I have this beautiful auto-penned pardon. And then the pardon will be tested in court. The defendants will have to argue that, no, Biden knew what he was signing. Perhaps Biden gets involved himself. And in that discovery, I think the country and the world will start to learn how the White House was actually functioning during the Biden regime and who was actually the president. That's the big question that I think everyone wants answered. Is who was running the country. We all know it wasn't Joe Biden. Even the liberals know that now. They're writing books about it. But we need to know.
So the trigger is someone who received one of these pardons has to be arrested for something else, which would then allow for the discovery to start digging in based upon the challenge of the auto pen pardon. So where are we with that, do you think?
So President Trump has directed, he's said out loud numerous times that the pardons are null and void, and refers to them as the auto pen pardons and the auto pen presidency. So the decision point rests in the Department of Justice now. U.S. Attorney Ed Martin in D.C. had asked the people who received the pardons about them, but he's on his way over to DOJ now in the weaponization effort he's leading there. So Judge Janine now is the one who ultimately decides in D.C. whether to prosecute or not prosecute.
Oh, that may be why they're all freaking out, because Trump almost did a checkmate with them by, instead of waiting for them to confirm Ed Martin, this whole 120 days thing is going to get triggered, and so she's going to have basically 120 days to do what she needs to do, and she can probably still confer with Ed Martin, and wherever he was with things, she can pick right up with it. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Ed Martin's not going to be far away. And we're also right around the corner, and we got more evidence that we're pushing out. We're not letting it go. This relates to everything you opened with. It's about accountability and weaponization, and these people need to be held accountable. And I think the whole country is waiting on that. It's 100 plus days in right now. Mm-hmm. These things take time, some for good reasons, some for bad reasons, but ultimately it's binary. Either we're doing it or we're not, and that's the expectations that are on this administration. So we're giving them every factual reason and legal reason to go for it that we possibly can.
Well, that leads me to the second story we're going to talk about. If there's, as they keep saying, potentially low-hanging fruit there with this auto pen stuff, what in the heck are they doing wasting time digging into Kyle Serafin's emails and YouTube account?
Yeah, so what I think happened there is those subpoenas were sent over during the Biden administration.
Okay.
Particularly as Kyle and others, were really picking up steam in their criticisms of the FBI. They testified, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so the reason they got that notice, and this is how it works in previous instances I've encountered, is because the FBI decided essentially not to renew those subpoenas. Okay. And once that clock told, Google then was able legally to disclose it to Kyle. Now, what upsets me is it shouldn't be the Google telling Kyle Serafin. It should be the Department of Justice notifying them as soon as they became aware of this stuff. It's like, look, man, they got all of your emails and your texts. Everyone you're talking to is covered in this. And so, there's really not a good excuse in my mind for the Trump administration not to be the one notifying those people, because there's a lot of urgency there. Mm-hmm. Are those emails out? Have they been leaked? Are people... Kyle is still fairly critical of the FBI right now. Are they being used to undermine his public discourse and arguments? And I think ultimately it's like a civil rights abuse right there. Mm-hmm. The FBI is supposed to be fighting serious crime. And when you see them using these serious legal authorities to do something that I think only can be described as punishment because he was being critical of them. Mm-hmm. It's not like he was guilty of any serious crimes or even alleged to have been. He's guilty of being critical of the FBI, and that to me is terrifying and needs to be remedied.
Now, yes, I think it was yesterday. It's funny, when you cover Trump, it just seems like the days all run together because so much happens. But so I think it was yesterday. A lot of people have been on the Pam Bondi fence and have been trying to navigate this whole thing and wondering what's going on. I don't really care about the Epstein files too much because I think there's more pertinent stuff. But General Flynn came out for the first time, and here's somebody who does have some NSA background, and he was involved in the deepest of intelligence. He came out and took a shot at Pam Bondi. What do you think that's all about?
Yeah, I'm not particularly tracking what the general said, but I mean, we all know there's a lot of angst out there. The expectations for the administration in this area are sky high. Mm-hmm. And, I'm trying to give them grace. As a lawyer, I know how hard it is to wrap your hands around an institution like the Department of Justice and proceed. Mm-hmm. But we haven't seen any fruit of that yet. In fact, there have been some own goals. Like some of these rollouts of document sets have, just been lazy and elementary, and in some ways just dumb, like what they did with the Epstein, folders that they gave out at the White House. And so I would like to see that get better. And, the timeline excuse is good for a little while, but it's not good forever. And so it's going to be clear one way or the other whether the de-weaponization accountability efforts happen. And right now, I see and believe and hope that they're trying for that, but we don't know it. We don't know it to be a sure thing, and that's what they're going to be judged by. And that's what the Oversight Project's trying to help out with, to make all the arguments about like what the facts are, new documents, and then the legal arguments, and then we sue quite a bit to help move these things along. That's how we fit into this puzzle.
Now, with everything that's going on in Washington with these district court judges and everything else, the only thing that basically is my support continuing for the FBI, Cash, Dan, and Pam Bondi, because I've seen her work down here, is the fact that when they bring something to bear and they bring it and they charge somebody, if they charge them in Washington, they're going to have an ironclad case, because if it's not, it'll probably, just be more fodder for one of these judges to do something stupid. Is there any way that they can move forward in another jurisdiction, or are they pretty much going to have to be stuck doing something in Washington?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. You charge people largely where the crime happened, and so they have latitude there. But in the macro sense, the fact that the FBI is based in D.C., is a problem for that end. And there's a lot of talk during the Biden administration about how to reform and fundamentally change the FBI, and it doesn't appear that's the intent of the administration now. You're seeing actually requests to Congress to beef up the FBI, hiring out and building out its intelligence function, which a lot of people think it shouldn't have, present company included. And so I'm not seeing an attempt to fundamentally change the FBI in that regard as a structural matter. They're basically making the argument we have new leadership, so we can just steer it in the right way. My argument is no. There's a lot more rotten at the core that needs to be addressed, so these things can never happen, because Cash and Mangino aren't going to be there forever.
Right.
If the administration turns, we need to make sure they aren't handed back a weaponized FBI that can be used the same way it was used last time.
Oh, and they will. If it's not changed, you can count on it. They will. Now, a quick question: are you an attorney yourself?
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's a big question, and then Stephen Miller caused this big question to come out when he said they're, quote, considering suspending habeas. I've had so many people who've heard so many different things. Can you explain first, before we ask any questions about it, what exactly does that mean if you're going to suspend habeas corpus?
Right. So a habeas claim is kind of like a last-ditch effort that people have under the Constitution to get in court, and this notion of due process, which the left is trying to say applies equally to citizens and illegal aliens alike. So getting rid of habeas corpus, which the president can do and has happened before, is basically saying, no, we're not entertaining this idea that illegal aliens and their, lawyers, which are paid for by, rich foundations and all these law firms, are going to be allowed to gum up the system moving forward. It's basically closing off that lane. The left will cry and say it's like an attack, but it's right there in the Constitution as to what the president can do about it. And so given the obstruction and the asymmetrical kind of lawfare that not only the illegal aliens and their lawyers are fighting, but what they're doing in the propaganda press, what they're doing to help people evade ICE and everything, it's saying, no, we're going to go to the fullest limits and authorities that we have. Stephen Miller's right to push for it, and taking off my lawyer hat, putting on my deportation scientist hat. It's the greatest way to avail ourselves of all the beautiful tools that this burgeoning field offers.
So President Trump I don't know what let me ask it. What's the process that he would have to go through to suspend habeas?
Yeah, I think just announcing it.
Wow.
It's pretty much it.
So it's not even an executive order. He can just say, I'm suspending habeas.
Right. I mean, they'll probably do an executive order to manifest the intent in a written way. But I mean, theoretically, like the Constitution doesn't outline the exact process a president must follow. And any restrictions on the president's ability to do the things in the Constitutions are unconstitutional. That being said, if he were to do it, I imagine they would write it down because it's going to be challenged one way or the other. And you just want to make sure that you're on the best footing possible.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the ink is dry in his signature, they're off to a judge in D.C. So he does it, and they run to the court, and the judge says, you can't do it, like they've done so many other things. At that point, is that where the constitutional crisis is, where you just like, I don't recognize your authority? Because it just seems as though at this point we're almost at an Andrew Jackson moment. So where do we go, or actually, where does President Trump go when all this stuff seems to be stonewalled in these district courts?
Yeah, I would love Congress to focus on that more than they're focusing just on their arguments related to tax cuts and which industries to favor or not. They could fix a lot of this in the context of the reconciliation bill and limit and clarify the courts and what their role is and get them back in check. Ultimately, this whole issue has been cast as like Trump pushing too hard and the courts doing their job, when fundamentally the opposite is true. We're seeing a judicial rebellion. They're the ones inviting this constitutional question. They're the ones acting outside of what their authorities are. And so what the left wants and propaganda media will push is like Trump's the one doing the nuclear option. What they don't understand is the nuclear option has already been pushed by these courts who are setting up this constitutional crisis, which they started.
The Supreme Court, as you know, did the 9-0 verdict, and they've been using that as a cudgel to say you're not listening to the Supreme Court. How is your organization defining, quote, facilitate? What exactly does that mean? Because it doesn't seem like there's been any subsequent clarification whatsoever.
Yeah, facilitate's an interesting word. It's I view the obligations of facilitate as minimal. It's not cause. It's not do it. It's basically a reactive thing that if, El Salvador wants to do it, then the Trump administration facilitates it, which I read to be in its most limited sense that that's it. It's not do anything affirmative. It's if asked to facilitate, you just do the bare minimum. And it puts the authority on someone else.
So why do you think the Supreme Court, after issuing that, has and seeing everybody talk about it in the media as Trump is defying the courts, why haven't they come back and clarified it?
Yeah, I think part of it is political, frankly. The court is navigating a political thing, and we know that Chief Justice John Roberts is a very political animal who cares ultimately about the perceptions of the court. And so they left the vagueness there in hopes that it would be kind of wound down, because ultimately if they came in and said, we, the Supreme Court, are saying, President Trump, you must, we control your deportation authorities, they know that'll be read as a massive attack on the constitutional structure. And they do want to avoid that. But at the same time, they want to keep the gray area open. It's, the lack of clarity from the Supreme Court there is intentional.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So what are you looking for on the horizon in terms of judicial, judgments from different judges or Supreme Court that tells you that President Trump should be clear to do some of the things he wants to do?
Yeah. So what I think is the most important thing is that the administration and they get the money and the resources, the strategy, and the infrastructure to deport as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. It is that is the game right now. To the effect, to the extent you could even call sovereignty and national security a game. But in terms of the politics and the judicial system, we can't stop the whole machine to fight over one MS-13 member every single time. Yeah. We need to get millions of people out and move faster than the judicial system is trying to slow us down to one at a time. When we're going to run it through the entire panoply of due process that we think these people deserve, which they don't. So that's the best way forward. Deport a ton of people.
All right, so last question for you. We saw over the weekend the Democrats lose their mind and try to storm into an ICE detention center. And we heard a bunch of them on the media and at the mini insurrection, per se, saying they had every right to enter that facility. Do they have the right? I understand they do, but is it on a moment's notice? Can you just barge in? Are you supposed to file any documentation? What exactly is the trigger that allows people from Congress to go into a federal facility like that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. We're putting out a legal memorandum today that basically outlines all these issues in great detail and makes the argument that all of them should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. No, individual members do not have the right to bum rush an ICE facility. And they can't say it's oversight. The way oversight actually works in Congress is it's vested in the majority powers, so the Republicans, and then it's dispersed through the committee chairs. They are the ones who have oversight powers. Individual members, regardless of what that statute says, cannot express the House's oversight powers as a whole. So the Democrats broke the law while acting as rogue agents.
Wow. So I was thinking, because you just can't walk into a jail down here in Broward County and say, hey, I'm a congressman, let me in because I want to see some. I mean, I couldn't possibly think that was how it works, but they tried to portray that in the media and everything else. So do you think, I mean, Tom Homan and Tricia McLaughlin, who works under Kristi Noem, said that more arrests are coming. Do you feel that will actually happen?
It better. I mean, that's why we're putting out the legal memoranda. We don't want to let this go unpunished. We want accountability. If the shoe were on the other foot, you can only imagine. And we don't have to imagine. Just look at the January 6th.
They actually did it. Hey, Mike, when's that memorandum coming out today?
Ideally, I got to talk to our legal team. I'll get back with them right after I get off the phone with you. But we don't want decisions to be made without making sure the public knows the full, the gamut of options that are on the table. Because this defense of the proffering as it being oversight, they're convincing some people, and they just don't know the law, and we do. And so we're going to clarify it so everyone does know that they can be held accountable.
And you're going to publish that on your Twitter feed? X feed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Mike, thank you for, number one, hanging out and waiting for, I mean, Mike, you guys don't know, but Mike was scheduled for like 10 o'clock, and it was 10:30, and we're trying to figure out how long President Trump was going to keep talking. So thank you very much for keeping your availability. We'll be watching for that memorandum as soon as you drop it, and I'll tell Ashley, as you drop that, maybe bring you guys back next week and say, let's see what happens. So thank you very much for coming on. You guys want to follow Mike, go to M. Howell Tweets. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in. I didn't know today. I told myself, listen, you got to start making shorter shows. People may not want to hang out for 3 hours, but we get going and they end up being 3 hours. I'm sorry. I got people who are good guests, and I didn't know much about Mike Howell. I know he was working in the background, and I know he was digging into some of this AutoPen stuff, but wow. There's some stuff, reason why I wanted to talk to him, because of all the Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and the Kash Patel uproar. People were digging in behind the scenes and understanding there's a whole lot of stuff happening. And they got to figure out some way very soon, whether it's Letitia James or whether it's Adam Schiff or something. You got to charge somebody, anybody that we can sink our teeth into so that you can begin the next stage, because the trigger, as Mike said, is the arrest. Then once you have the arrest, then you can do the discovery and start looking into the closet and see what's back there. See, without it being someone getting put in cuffs, it's very hard to do anything on the surface. And for the love of God, forget the Epstein list. The whole thing with James O'Keefe and other people, that's a hook to stick in your mouth. Then when you put a hook in your mouth, you guys who have fished, what you're doing is you're yanking. And when you're yanking something, you're taking the focus away from what's in front of you. I know we've all wanted to see the Epstein list, but there's bigger game fish right now. And those of you guys who have been following, the Diddy trial started today. So maybe who knows? But don't go off into the tangent and being pissed off. We don't have an Epstein file thing yet. Who would you rather have? Let me put it this way. Would you rather have an Epstein file release or an Adam Schiff arrest? Or Liz Cheney arrest? Because the Epstein files, as I've said many, many times, those people, if they're still alive, they're not going anywhere. Let them sweat. Yes, you can still concentrate on finding the kids, which I believe they're doing because we're seeing arrests all the time. So the networks involved in what Epstein did, yeah, get the kids. Make sure the kids are safe. But the names of the scumbags, they ain't going nowhere. And pretty much imagine what your life would be right now if you're in there, if you're in the details of what went on with Epstein. Imagine waking up every morning, is it today? Am I going to get the knock today? Is my name going to be mud today? And knowing you have no control, nothing, there's nothing you can do if the knock comes. So let them sweat. Let them have palpitations in their heart because they know what they've done. And soon we will all know what they've done, but it's not a top priority. The kids are a priority and stopping all the other stuff. But the actual people, they're going to get what's coming. I'm sure on that. So, but we got to see some serious arrests. So, somebody's like, there's so much rain down here the last 2 days. I'm buying a John boat. Yeah, I was sitting here the entirety of the show going, oh my gosh, light's still on. Yeah, everything's still on. Yeah, because it's been raining cats and chihuahuas. That's why he didn't go outside. He's like, I ain't going out there. I don't care what you do. I couldn't get Midas to go out. I had to drag him to get him outside. And that's one of the reasons why we're also going to be moving into a studio, because the building I'm looking at has a generator and all kinds of different things so that we don't have to worry about this. And I also want to have different sets, so it's not just one set behind me. There's different things and different things to look at. I want to get a nice video LED wall, do something like they do on television, because I'm thinking long term. I know where this thing is going with President Trump. I know how it's going to be. And I'm like, I got a 4-year commitment. Let's jump in. And then I look back and I went, wait a minute. Rush Limbaugh was on the air for 25 years. Different Democrats, Republicans. It still worked. In fact, it was probably more popular when there were Democrat presidents because people were looking for that safety net. And so I know that people like Glenn Beck, Hannity, they've been on the air for 25, 30 years. So I'm thinking this as long as God allows me to wake up and breathe every morning, get yourself into a nice studio. Let's do this. And I want you guys to come along with me. All right. So somebody goes, my dog's the same way. Yeah. The rain and cloud and humidity. Oh, that does all kinds of problems on my knee. So yes, absolutely. I'm still getting asked if I want a C-19 jab. No, don't do it. Don't do it. You're doing fine. Just keep up the good work. Don't let anyone tell you that your show is too long. I'll listen to you no matter how long it is. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, a lot of you. And that's why, by the way, that's why a lot of sponsors want to be a part of this, because we have such a great community of people. So, Barry, you're the new Rush. I'm the new Rush only at this point in regards to how long and verbose I can be by going for 3 hours or sometimes 6 hours, which today might even be longer because we'll do an afternoon show because I got to go eat, and then we'll do tonight. You know what you guys can do? Well, I think I've got some music planned for the Rumble Jump tonight, but we'll talk about that in the afternoon show. All right, so let me look at if there's any super chats I need to acknowledge here. I shall. Before I do that, let's look in on the market. The market is up 900, so it's pretty much, it's been like 900. Not really jumping too much right now. Let's look at gold. Gold is at down 3%. So just ride it out. Things are happening. Things are definitely happening. I heard Bitcoin was doing very well today, which is very interesting. Okay, let me look at the super chat so I can go to go to lunch. I ain't going anywhere. I got to go out there. Robin Pryor already has lunch. She's so good to me. She just makes sure that when I'm off here, she's comfortable and there's something to eat, and it's just a lot of fun. Love that woman. All right. Job for 9. Morning fanfare fam. Great time to be alive. Dow futures 1,000 up before the bell ringing. Amazing. Nancy J. Who are the media? Thank you. Dems are done. Job for 9. Dems are done. I don't know how you come out against this. That's probably why, like I said, the press didn't want to have any questions about it. They didn't want to talk about this amazing announcement. And it's such an amazing announcement when you look at it this way. Almost every single person you know who's an adult, and many who are children, are going to be impacted by this one executive order. You don't see many executive orders and laws that impact every. Let me talk about that. That impact every or as many as people who will be impacted as this will. If they do like a climate change thing, yeah, I might have a certain car or not car, or if they say this or they say that. And even with the no tax on tips, people who aren't getting tips, they're not really affected. No tax on overtime. Yeah, I don't work overtime. I don't get affected. But almost every single adult in some way or fashion is impacted by the cost of prescription medications. And the media didn't want to talk about it. So this is probably closer to a 90-10 issue. 90-10 meaning only 90% of people definitely want lower prescription drugs. Those who are taking them definitely want lower prices. But the media, shh. So I can't wait to compile some of their opposition research and see what they're putting out there, because I'm sure it's out there. World peace. Trump is helping the same seniors that have been protesting against him with medicine prices. Truly a president for all Americans. Bingo. Yeah, all these people are out there, the crazy libs that are, even I saw down here in Boca. I'm sure every single one of them, 100% of them, are taking some medications that he is now going to reduce the price on their behalf. And they still hate him. Cuckoo. Martine Morales Prince. Good morning from Atlanta. Good morning. Barry, thank you always for sharing honest news and current events. Your channel is all I need to watch every day to be fully informed. Thank you very, very much. Arizona Guy 1. Barry, leftist freaking out about a free airplane. It shows you their pettiness. It's like, you understand it's a free plane, right? None of us really cares about it. If he wants to ride around a new plane, that's up to him. Why do I care? As long as it's safe, you can have it. Lone Wolf, still didn't get any notification now, but at least I got tuned a little bit late. God bless you. Thank you, Lone. You can always just rewind. I mean, you can do that, but yeah, the notifications on YouTube are really squirrely. Matt Martin, why not take a free market approach to healthcare? There's a suggestion, but you'd have to roll back Obamacare, and these guys don't want to get off their butts and do anything. B.F. Thompson, thank you. Matt Martin, get the DEA out of healthcare, Trump and Mr. Kennedy. QC politics and news. President Trump was singing sweet song. X is still exploding with Orange Man bad. We keep winning. Orange Man bad. RF1 Games. Trump is a legend. Question, Barry. Any way to ask someone why the people do false swatting on people are not being held accountable, or why we can't? You would think in 2025 that they'd be able to trace back where the swatters were calling from and that. But again, you're going back to the media. If Tim Pool or somebody got swatted, unless you're following Tim Pool and he's involved with the police or law enforcement that did the people that did it to him, the media doesn't even talk about swatting. It's like that doesn't even exist. It's like, hey man, this guy could have gotten killed. They don't care. So I don't even know what's going on. And maybe, someone who has been swatted, ask them, because there's no way for us to know. None. Let's see here. What do we got? This is Wallace Hagel. Could you please interview Stephen Greer? This organization needs to have as much exposure as possible for the sake of humanity. Not sure who Stephen Greer is, but Ashley can look him up. And Job for 9, Monster Truck didn't tell me how to live. Love you, Barry. All right, everybody. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take it down now. I'm going to put the normal after party on. You guys can talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to go get some lunch, and it looks like I have a guest coming on. I have to see what time she's scheduled. And then if she's scheduled, I'll probably do 1 or 2. And if she's not scheduled, I may do 2. So I will know short period of time. Thank you guys for tuning in with Coffee with Barry. Ben, he does these 9:30. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get out of bed. I don't have time to eat. I gotta take the dogs out. I gotta kiss the wife, and then I gotta go do a show at 9:30 in the morning. And of course, that means I gotta do a whole bunch of stuff beforehand. So the next show, whether it's at 1 or 2, here's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be talking about the China deal and all the things that Scott Bessent and Jameson did while they were in Switzerland. And I'm sure since we've been on, there's a whole bunch more news about it as well. So talk to you very soon.
Thank you.